listening to Superpower Creatives on the Superpower Up podcast. The show that sparks the superpowers of musicians and artists to ignite change.
All the little men, will they get the chance to come back?
Hello, this is David Delmar, your host of Superpower Creatives, and you're listening to our episode, Artful Expression of Consciousness. I believe everyone is a creator, and it's this inherent birthright that's the source of our superpowers. Stepping into this personal authority is scary, though. This show celebrates creatives that stay true to who they really are, making a living using their creative superpowers. The stories they share will excite and inspire listeners to do the same, making positive change in the world. I'm quite excited and most honored to welcome our guest for today's show. She's an extremely talented visual artist who is blazing a path for other creatives and people in general to begin knowing they are also creators. Her art and how she expresses her unique talents is creating a movement that's a catalyst for the first of its kind creative revolution we're all globally experiencing, witnessing, and participating in together. Whitney Freya is a published author, artist, entrepreneur, and creative muse, and her latest book, Rise Above, Free Your Mind, One Brushstroke at a Time, is out now and available for you to enjoy and improve as an artist and as a person. It's an explosion of color, painting prompts, and inspirational teaching for life artists. Her unique approach to personal creativity and her own journey from wannabe artist to today has garnered her international media attention, including CBS News and appearances alongside Dr. Wayne Dyer, Donna Eden, and more. And of course, she doesn't do all this alone. She leads her international team of creatively fit coaches who share her passion for living life as art, that join her in helping to change and enhance people's lives. Whitney has taught at the Esalen Institute, many different international creativity conferences, the world-renowned Burning Man, Awesomeness Fest, and the Agape Spiritual Center. She's loving her life, living in the mountains in Northeast Oregon with her 3 teens, and holds retreats there in the summer for people like you to come and learn from one of the very best. To learn more and to join the Life Artist Palette, who are her tribe, you can visit her at www.whitneyfreya.com. Whitney, hello. Thank you so much for being here today. What a joy for me.
Thank you, David. It's amazing to be here with you.
Well, it is amazing indeed to just be alive, period. So I share in all that has to offer, indeed. And I also want to just say thank you for the ways you are countlessly helping people to embody and express their own high-level artistic abilities. Whether it be you helping them with the brushstroke of a painting, or helping them as a thought leader, empowering them as an artist and people to up-level their life in the way that they truly want. I just want to acknowledge and honor the way you do that, the way you are just helping people to reach their full potential and everything they can become and should become.
Right. Thank you so much. It is such a gift, and I'm grateful every day to be able to witness people waking up to their true creative nature. I'm sure everyone listening has heard a million times, like, oh, I'm not creative. You're creative, you have talent, but I'm not creative. And and helping people to understand that inherently in our bones and our DNA, we are creators, and to create awareness around how we're creating in each and every moment, and how we can create more of what we want by focusing our imagination on, life working out, and life rising up to meet you, and life being an opportunity for you to learn and express, rather than the flip side, which is, taking what's happening externally and allowing that to dictate what we think about and worry about and stress about. And it's a pure joy. I love it. And I love how you have this all framed as superpowers and people living their truest natures, because it really is, when you create from your heart, whether it's music or writing or painting, it is that pure self-expression, and it does give other people permission to do the same. And it also scares people, right? Because, it's exciting to be a creator, and then there's responsibility that comes with it, right? So
there is.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the responsibility that comes with, the willingness to step into that power, and as scary as it ultimately is, it's really the only way forward. And these days, it's almost more scary not to do it.
Yes.
Because the world is changing in such a way that to not do that, there's way more scary, outcomes potentially with that scenario than the other. So it's really interesting the way the world's changing for everybody, and how everyone's needing to step into that powerful place.
Yes.
Well said. Well, today we're talking about our show, Artful Expression of Consciousness, and in particular, how Whitney finds art increases her inner knowing of her true self as an artist and a person, and how having this level of awareness helps her to continue to grow and improve with her craft and in her life. So, Whitney, how we always like to roll the show out is with the same question for everybody. It's possibly an obvious one, but here it is. What is your creative superpower?
Well, my creative superpowers have evolved, right?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. That's a fun part about them.
Yeah. What I love about what's showing up now in my creative superpower arsenal is the ability to help people see themselves and their life from a multidimensional perspective.
Love that.
Right? And that word, when it was first kind of given to me, you guys know how that happens, right? Like you receive these thoughts and ideas and inspiration, and it was all around the multidimensional nature of who we are. And it felt scary to use that word, to post it or to send it in an email or talk about it with my students. And about a year later, it's like been on the cover of whatever magazine that said the brain has been found to be multidimensional, and the word is everywhere. So I love that about how whatever creative source is kind of dripping these awarenesses into us, I believe, in the right time, right? Like maybe a couple years ago, we couldn't have really comprehended our multidimensional nature, but we can now. And what I find that it does is it helps people. And of course, this is the title of my book, but it's the title for a reason is to rise above the traditional, entrenched, kind of linear, ego-centered, fear-based way of thinking, which is not bad or wrong. It's just not meant to steer the ship. And when people can understand and take a step back and look at that aspect of them as one part of who they are, and that they also have this intuitive creative aspect, and then they have the aspect of them that was 10 years old, that was 20 years old, 30 years old, that's a mother, that's a father, that's a musician, that is a dreamer, and that also then you can look ahead into all the infinite possibilities of who you could be and what you could experience moving forward, and then consciously choose as a life artist which kind of future reality you want to tap into. And so what I find the very practical results of that is that people gain much more self-confidence. They've stopped worrying as much about the kind of present moment details and opened up to a level of trust and a way of knowing that kind of connects them to the future self that's already on the other side of whatever said challenge or obstacle or problem that's, walked the master path, and then can give yourself your own advice. So that may take a moment for someone to wrap their brains around. That's kind of a big,
I love it. No.
I laid a lot of teaching there in that one sentence, but it's for me personally, it's been a shedding of the worry and the stress factor. I mean, literally that's the greatest gift that I've been given. And then it is this beautiful alignment with that truth that we've all heard forever, that you have everything you need within. You have all the wisdom you need within. And I don't know about any of you, but I used to hear that and be like, well, I mean, I guess, or maybe
what
you do, but
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm really, if I really get that. But that's from me as a historical individual, that's however many years old and lives wherever and is named whatever. But when I can tap into that kind of infinite multidimensional nature of myself, and it really is, it is remembering into your future, just like you can remember your past. You can remember your future. And so you remember into your future and then kind of get the clues or the advice or the wisdom from that future reality. And it's fun, right? And it'll trip some of your friends out around the dinner table. And, it really does lead to this like conviction and authenticity that I think all of us as creatives really are drawn to.
Well said. Yeah, that is high level wisdom, well articulated, eloquently communicated, and a wonderful way of answering that. And it's very awesome stuff. Well, we need to take a quick break, but I want to explore some more of what you're sharing here, Whitney. And for those who are listening, how they can find some value from what you're sharing and how they can use that to create some helpful direction forward for their own lives. But before we do jump into the break, let's tell people where they can go to find out more about you.
So you can go to whitneyfreya.com. It's Whitney like Whitney Houston, and Freya, the Norse goddess of love, and it's Freya. And that is a super fun place to connect.
Well, go there, folks, and do connect, and be happy you did. I can promise. Well, fantastic stuff here. All right, so we've been talking with Whitney Freya today about our episode, Artful Expression of Consciousness. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue painting this mental picture with Whitney for you and to continue learning more from her perspectives about art and life.
Are you here to change the world? Do you talk about things like vibration, frequency, awakening, and consciousness? Are you pretty sure you have superpowers? The Superpower Net is unlike normal coaching programs and conscious communities. We provide training, intuitive guidance, peer-to-peer learning, intensive one-on-one coaching, and a high vibrational network of people just like you. When you join the net, you get 24/7 access to a collaborative group of people who support you as you master your personal power and unlock your superpowers. If you're ready to use your superpowers to change the world, then join the Superpower Net today. Visit superpowerexperts.com/thenet to learn more.
We're back. You're listening to Superpower Creatives. And today we're talking with Whitney Freya on our episode, Artful Expression of Consciousness. So, Whitney, I'd love to circle back to where we just left off before the break. And I want to ask you this. The multidimensional aspect of ourselves, I'd love to hear a little more of your own personal experience with what that process has been like for you to evolve into that knowing, into that understanding. So where, you mentioned being able to remember your future. If you can, share with us a little bit about how that experience was and how that's impacted your life.
Yeah, there's a lot to that. So, for example, when I started teaching back in 96, my focus was all on left-right brain, which, as we know, you can't take into brain surgery, but as a working model and understanding our consciousness and how we look at things, the left-right brain model really does work. And the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere are meant to balance each other and dance together, and they both exist for very beautiful reasons. The challenge has been that for all of us really growing up and the modern society that we've been living in, I would like to say until recently, I think it's coming more into balance, has celebrated the logical, the linear, the proof, the results, the visible, right? That equaled success. And so because of that, that left hemisphere, which is also the inner critic, which is very valuable, except when it's not, right?
Exactly, yeah. Except when it's not.
Exactly. And the fear, protects us as individuals, and it kind of got into hyperdrive. It was protecting us from trying new things, from saying our truth, from, stepping into roles that didn't logically seem to fit, but that felt right. So the left brain is meant to be balanced by the right. And when I opened my art center in '96 in Nashville, Tennessee, I saw it as like the YMCA for the right brain. And so it was all about helping people, balance, get that right brain muscle creatively fit. Thomas Edison said that the brain works just like a set of muscles if one would only train the mind to think, right? So I was using art instead of weights and treadmills to help people stimulate and access that right hemisphere so that they could go back out into the art that is their life and create the change they wanted. And then as life progressed, that left-right brain, the left brain is linear, A, B, C, 1 + 1 = 2 kind of thing. And then what we all know as creatives is that there's this kind of alternate way of looking at things, or the dance partner is one in that things are intuitive, and 1 + 1 can sometimes equal 5. And, you can lose track of time and you can receive these ahas. And then, alongside that journey for me, we started talking about energy and quantum physics, right, in the modern world. And one practical example is back in like 2003, 2004, I had this art center that was in an old house in kind of a side street off of a up and coming commercial district. And I was wanting to kind of downsize. I had 3 kids by then. And I met with a woman who was moving out of her gallery space to open a wine bar. And she and I were going to merge her gallery and my adult art classes, because I'd been teaching kids as well. And she kept saying, like, I wish you could be part of the wine bar. And I just kept thinking, like, what is she smoking? Like, I am, I've got like a 1, 3, and 5-year-old, and I have this book that is meant to be published, and that is my main focus. And then in an instant, it was like I remembered my future. It was like, oh yeah, the wine bar is what gets the book published. Now, I would never recommend opening a restaurant to get a book deal, but that's exactly what happened. The short story is a regular from my art center and the wine bar, who is a best-selling author and all of this, introduced me to my publisher, and we sat on the patio having a cheese plate and, Chardonnay or something. And the wine bar gave me this like local celebrity status, which always cracked me up, because half the time I'd be like cleaning toilets or like figuring out some catastrophe. But anyway, so he published my book. And that was this example of remembering your future. So, for example, when things, you learn about something for the first time and you feel a resonance, it can be meeting someone. It can be seeing a course or a workshop. I remember walking to the restroom at a restaurant when I moved to Oregon, and I saw a sign for the mini triathlon that was happening. And I got like zinged with this lightning bolt, like, whoa, I'm supposed to do that. And, I did. So you kind of learn to follow those clues, those energetic clues that help you understand, like, wow, there's a lot of energy here. This feels very familiar, even though I'm just learning about it or meeting this person. And so this is a clue that this is a potential direction I can head, right? There are infinite things we can do. So over the years, up until it was about 2 years ago that I was actually, I had a reading done, and I was told that I exist. We all exist on multidimensional levels, and we have these multidimensional aspects of ourselves that are super, super present and that are guiding each and every one of us, especially you listening, since you're a creative. You have these aspects of you that are guiding you and prompting you, poking you every day and influencing your day-to-day activity as much as the weather. She kept saying that over and over again. Wow. And that we're meant to remember this right now, and that it's very important. And when you think about the fact, and I know you guys all are familiar with this, when you think about how dominant that inner critic, fear-based perspective is in each of our consciousness, and myself as well, and the people I work with, it almost feels like this epidemic, where we're constantly putting ourselves down. We're constantly comparing ourselves to others, telling ourselves all the reasons why we're not good enough for this, that, or the other. And what I see with the clients I work with, as soon as they tell me, what they really want to create into their lives, as far as I'm concerned, they're there. I know it's available to them. And then I, have to spend a certain amount of time, usually before I cut them off, listening to all their excuses and reasons why they can't do it, which can be super valid, right?
Yeah.
I mean, from a logical, fear-based point of mind, it's like, yeah, geez, that's rough. But then the question is this what you want? Is this the palette you want to be creating from? Because what I see is this vision, this desire you have is in your heart. You speak with it with such passion that I know it is available to you. So we can spend our time together taking steps that are in alignment with that future you that's clearly, in my mind, already there doing that. Or we can choose the future you that, a couple years from now is still talking about this thing that you want to do. And there's no judgment, because I believe we're all infinite beings. We've got nothing but time, We can come back over and over and over again and sit there on the couch and talk about what we want to do and not do it. Or you can, nail it in this lifetime, like go for it. And that's what I love. So another example for me these days, a couple of years ago, I went paragliding for the first time. It was actually 2015. And I've always wanted to fly. Like, I have paintings hanging around my house that have written in them, if I could do anything, I had any superpower, it would be to fly. And I painted birds and feathers and wings, and they're everywhere. It's pretty hysterical. And so in 2016, I flew my own wing for the first time. I decided that it would be really good left brain training for me. So my inner critic and discernment and perfectionism and detail could use a little work. And I thought, maybe if I make it life or death, my left brain will kick in. And it's still pretty difficult, but I've flown 150 flights now and spent 51 hours in the air. And I launched off a 8,500 foot mountain. I've thermaled with eagles. I've spent 3 hours in the air at a time. It's unbelievable. And, I'm 48. I have 3 teenage kids, and I'm paragliding. Like, how does it get any better than that? And that only happened because almost every time I fly, I'm like, okay, I'm just choosing to align with the aspect of me that's already an expert paraglider, like already knows what to do, and didn't get stuck in like 48-year-old mothers don't fly, right? Like, who says?
they're not supposed to do anything. 48, right? That's supposed to be it. You're supposed to start doing something like getting ready for something. But I love that. That's such a powerful story. And wow, I mean, as I was first hearing it, was like, oh, you went the paragliding once, and I was like, oh, cool. It's like, somebody says, oh yeah, well, yeah, I went skydiving. Yeah, I did it once, but I checked it off my bucket list kind of thing. And so I was like, oh yeah, in my mind, oh yeah, cool, that's awesome. She, checked that off her bucket list, and it's like, yeah, so I've done 150 flights now. I'm like, yeah, that's the stuff right there. Yeah, man. That's it. And the crazy, so
and the crazy thing about that, right, is so I decided to learn to paraglide, and I decided to make it part of my business, for lots of reasons. And I told the friend who's teaching me, I'm like, I'm going to weave this all together. And then he goes to New Zealand for part of the year, and he came back, and I showed him my book, Rise Above, with the angel wings on the cover, and I'm like, okay, it all came together. Like from a symbolic life artist, multidimensional being perspective, the flying and the rise above, and how I help people rise above their limiting beliefs and outdated programming, and my own personal journey just all got woven together so beautifully. And, I painted paintings with people with wings, and I mean, it just becomes so magical. And that's the other thing that I love to teach people, tune them into, to connect to this multidimensional self, is the symbols and the imagery that are speaking to you or calling to you, or like, oh, I'm seeing, lotus flowers everywhere. Well, do you know what lotus flower symbolism is? Do you know it's medicine? Like, look it up. I wear Google out, looking up symbols. And, I'm seeing hummingbirds every day, or everything like that. Anything you're really attracted to has a meaning, has guidance for you. And it's because, the left brain, the linear mind, speaks the written and oral language, right? Like that's how that side communicates. The intuitive, creative right hemisphere speaks in imagery and symbols. It's Carl Jung. Imagination, symbols, and imagery are pathways to the unconscious mind. So when your eye, of all the things you're looking at all day, when you find yourself attracted to something over and over, or an image or something crossing your path over and over, there is a message there for you. And, quantum physics has said that whenever you hear something more than once, you're meant to follow that. And so,
all the breadcrumbs.
yeah, exactly. And I think as far as stepping into your most authentic personal expression, it's much more effective to tune into that right hemisphere form of communication than the left. So that's my passion.
Well, I love it. And the passion, I mean, it's so evident, and I know it's infectious for me, and I know for the listeners, it is as well, because it's, you know when somebody is sharing the truest essence of who they are and how they speak, and through the ways they put action to those beliefs, and the up leveling and the mindset and everything like that. And I want to ask you this, Whitney, because I'm curious. I mean, you have clearly, evolved in your own consciousness, and, you outwardly express who you are in your art and in your life. With those who you work with, what is the type of limiting belief duration that you find people, if there's like an average where somebody gets it, how long does somebody want to stay in their narrative, to stay in their story that keeps them feeling like they're safe? Is there an average amount of time that you're able to like get a breakthrough for somebody to like really reach into that higher, vibration of their, the resonance of who they are? I'm curious, because I love your story, and I love how you just shared everything you just did. And that's from someone who's clearly found that true evolution in themselves. And I was just curious how you've found that with others, if there's a certain average of which amount of time somebody takes to do something similar, or at least something kind of similar.
Well, I love that question. And I mean, you guys hear it's a kind of left brain question, right? Like, how long does it take?
Yeah.
How long will it take me to get there?
Because they're
not that you're
right
not
now.
there, but right. Well, so here's the thing. I've seen, in the classic kind of right brain answer, there are different layers and levels to it. I mean, in my own personal journey, it's like walking up this infinite staircase. There have been lots of steps up, and then there's always the next one, and they build, and sometimes you have this like, like it happens really quick. And then others are like, just trying to lift your leg up. I've seen people come to me, like I've been at the book expo in New York with holding a palette and a paintbrush and a canvas. I don't even know how I did all that, but I'm like standing at my publisher's booth, inviting people to just make their mark on this collaborative canvas. And I've seen people like barely have the courage to grasp the brush, and I almost have to like hold their hand and dip it in the paint. Like really, it's not going to hurt. Dip it in the paint and then put it on the canvas. And as soon as the paintbrush touched the canvas, I watched them just light up and literally see energy, darkness, like just fall off of them. And they get their eyes, their eyebrows go up and their eyelids open, their eyes open, and they're just like, oh my gosh, they've spent so much time being afraid of that. And that's the only reason why I get people painting, is because there's just so much fear around it. So I've witnessed that like instant. I've taken executive groups. I work with corporations on and off, as people find me and are like, come. You won't find much marketing for my corporate stuff, but over the years I've done dozens. And I've taken a room full of executives from like, oh, I can't paint. I mean, I worked with 12 executives, former CIA, military admirals and generals. They were so scared of me. It was hysterical. And, I got them doing my soul scribble exercise, and they were just like, oh, I don't know. And then they painted this group mural where they don't even know what they're painting, and then we put it together, and then they had to make it better. And whereas 20 minutes earlier, they were afraid to paint, 20 minutes later, I don't even have to tell them anything. They're like, okay, we need to create more contrast here. We need to bring this out and add opposite colors. And, so that can happen really quickly. The other thing I've thought about is and I've been there, where you're, maybe you're just doing your art, your creativity part-time. Maybe you're in a job you hate or a relationship that you just know, like, God, I used to be married and I, as much as I wanted that to work and I didn't want to be anything but married, it was like, God, this is not it. Like, it just, it was this huge feeling of discordance. And it was a lot of work trying to keep that okay. And it was scary. And we had this like perfect life and perfect kids and, externally it was all perfect. And so getting the courage to say time out, actually it's not, and I'm leaving, was huge. So when you're at those stages where you're like, this is big, like there's a lot of my life that is not feeling good. What I believe is you give yourself 3 years. Which can sound like a lot, but come on, like a year goes by so quickly these
3
days.
Years ain't long anymore.
No, but if you're like, okay, for 3 years, I am going to commit to this future vision. So I help people create that like future, this is the me I'm choosing. And over the next 3 years, you make decisions that are in alignment with that. And you recognize that fear is not there to stop you or to punish you or to cause you pain. It's at the threshold of your next level of, up-leveling or evolvement. And it's there to get you ready. It's there to bring you present. It's there to remind you of things that you want to learn or, superpowers that you want to take back before you cross that threshold. And then you just realize, like, I have chosen a life of expansion, and I have chosen, therefore, to face fear, because those are always standing at the threshold. Otherwise, we would just be evolving like crazy, right?
Yes, we would.
Yeah. So let's take 3 years and let's, open up and ask, okay, what are all the ways I can find a new career? What are all the ways I can, experience harmony in my relationships? What are all the ways I could move? Don't ask yourself how. Don't sit there and try and figure it out. Just open. And then when the doors open, walk through them.
Yeah.
But I think 3 years, in my experience, myself and with clients, their lives can be completely different, and they can be celebrating where they used to be complaining. And it's a process.
Yeah, it is a process. Well, and it's a beautifully put, amount of time for that process with 3 years, and just, the way you've sort of detailed why that's, the perfect amount of time, especially with, time being such a fleeting thing, that 3 years can go by in a snap. So like step into that place of authority now, because 3 years will go by, and you don't want to have that sort of regretful feeling that you didn't stand into that bold place of who you can become ultimately. So I love that, and it's just been such amazing stuff to listen to. Time, speaking of, just went so fast on this one. But before we close up the show, let's remind listeners where they can go to find out a little more about you, Whitney.
Yeah, so it's WhitneyFreya.com is my email. You just Google Whitney Freya, bajillions of things will come up. And what I really want to invite you to, and what you just said, David, is when you learn to live as a life artist, and you understand that the art we're all creating is our lives. That's the ultimate art. And so when you learn to live as a life artist, it is permission to look ahead and choose, okay, here's what I want to create into my experience. And just like musicians, you can look at a keyboard or a guitar. Is there any end? Is there any end to the songs you could create, or the harmonies, or whatever, the tunes? I'm not musically trained. I don't know the lingo, or the blank canvas. There's no end to just even the shades of blue you could create on that canvas. So when you look at your life from that perspective as well, there is no end to what you can experience in this lifetime. The only question is, what do you want? And then let's create it from there. So if you go to WhitneyFreyaStudio.com, and it's on WhitneyFreya.com too, but go to WhitneyFreyaStudio.com. That's my learning platform, my online learning platform. And there's a life artist course that's free. And there's videos of me out in the mountains where I live. And it's 5 short videos and 5 symbols that will kind of take you step by step into this paradigm, this lens of looking at life as a life artist. And so that's what I would really encourage you all to do, and share that with people. You as a creative are medicine for the world. Like, you are here to show people that there is something other than the linear left brain. And it's not about results and achieving and amassing and, ticking things off the list. It's about expressing and beauty and energy and vibration. And that's why we're here as creatives. So please don't forget that. Like, you are on a very important mission, and you're here right now to really help inspire and be a way shower for others, just by doing what you love and sharing it. So thank you for allowing me to share with you my art, which is waking up that knowing within you.
Well, you're very welcome, and folks, do go and take that opportunity from her sharing with that opportunity from her website, and that can be a very powerful activity for everybody, most definitely. Well, Whitney, it's just been a lot of fun to co-create with you today in the space, and I want to just congratulate you for your strength and power as a very gifted, talented artist who fully expresses who she is through living an artful life that's obviously empowering many other people to discover that powerful artist that they have inside them as well. So my hat's off to all the great work you're doing in the world.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I want to, of course, thank the listeners as well. And until next time, be bold, stay true, and unveil your creative superpowers.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the superpower quiz today.
I get up and I show